What's going on, everybody? Welcome to the Dig It podcast. I'm your host, Drew Walsh, and today we got Coach LEE TAFT in the house, a world-renowned speed coach. And again, like we had you on season one, we're super blessed to have you back on season two. And for all our listeners, because we have a lot of parents and athletes in the baseball world that follow this, and they might be more coaches, X and O. LEE TAFT, I just want to express how lucky we are to sit here and have a conversation with you. You do such a tremendous job taking something that's super complex and making it somewhat understandable for just a parent or a younger athlete. And I want to go into this because I'm so appreciative of that, because I don't think people realize how difficult it is to make something as complicated as physics seem so simple. Coach LEE TAFT, thank you so much for coming back on season two. How are we doing?
Oh, awesome. I can't express how thankful I was for you to reach out and invite me back. Drew, it's always fun. I love watching your stuff. I'm a big fan of your videos you share because they're so educational. And I'm sure there's a lot of coaches out there that steal your stuff and go right to work with it. And that's what we put it out there for, right? To make the greater good,
Yes.
better. So yeah. But yeah, this is fun. And I'll tell you, I think because I grew up in a family of teachers and physical education people and coaches, I learned that as a young coach, if you make things difficult, nobody learns. So I just really
Love
try
that.
to make it simple, make it simple so we can grasp it.
Recently, I was talking to a peer, and Coach Ron Washington was talking about how, I need you, and he's speaking to an athlete, I
Yep.
need you to feel what I see. So
Yeah.
when I hear you say coaching, it just goes back to the term that we always talk about. Like, I need to be able to explain the same thing 30 different ways because I have 30 different perspectives to relay a message to. And I think a lot of coaches get frustrated by that, or will just like kind of give up and like, you just don't get it. It's black and white. And it's like, nah, man. Like, if you only knew what was going on in between the ears when you're hitting them a ground ball, like, it's not black and white. And you need to hold yourself accountable as a coach to be able to demonstrate it 10 ways, explain it 10 ways, visually give them feedback. So I love that, coach. And guys, I've learned anything, not anything, but majority of what I've learned on the movement side of things has come from Coach LEE TAFT. Anything movement inspired is foundationally from Coach LEE TAFT. I highly, highly recommend you get out there and listen to him stuff. He's very approachable. He's very humble. He's one of the best speed coaches in the world, and he somehow is letting me talk to him. So I appreciate that, coach. But speaking of Ron Washington, who just left the Braves, prior to the podcast, you're making a visit out to the Atlanta Braves facilities, right? If you could take us into a little bit of what you're going to speak upon there, that'd be awesome.
Yeah, yeah. So again, one of my areas of specialty that I get asked to speak on a lot is the multi-directional world of movement and speed. Now when we start talking about a sport like baseball, we can see how important initial starting speed is. The game is so fast. It's wait, 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 wait. Now go 90 miles an hour, just like that. It's like, infielders, outfielders. An area that we'll spend quality time on, with the Braves is steel technique. Positionally, how to organize ourselves and how to have a model. Because what I try to tell the coaches, because they'll say, "Well, my player likes to do it," I said, "That's okay. If they know the rules, they can break them. But if they don't know the rules, they can't break them, because the issues that they're going to run into are hitting them in the back of the head and they can't figure out why. But if they know it going in, okay, now you can manipulate them a little bit to fit your personal preference as to how you like to stand, or something that makes them feel really good." I just say the further we get away from how we're designed to move most efficiently and effectively based on physics and biomechanics and just pressure, the tougher we make it on ourselves. It can't all be about, the YouTube video. It's got to be about what's going to get me to second base quick without getting tagged out.
And I love that, coach. And such a I think you're a breath of fresh air to like, listen, I think a lot of people have good intentions on social media platforms. They want to create, they want to innovate, but I think it's really easy because no one holds you accountable, right? Like you
Yeah.
could just post these crazy things that get a lot of attention, attention's leverage and power. But I just wonder if the message is always concrete, if it's
Mhm.
foundational to the, like you said, the laws of physics.
Yeah.
So let's go into that. I think laws of physics in relation to steel break and setup and just lateral acceleration. I think, coach, it's just like the action reaction, right? Like just figuring out how to get a static thing propelled in a desired direction based on the environment. But it starts
For sure.
within. And what coach is saying is like, listen, we all have our certain techniques and styles and we feel smooth and comfortable. But as a coach, you just got to make sure they don't stray too far away from what's going to actually allow them to uh, accelerate and be able to propel their center of mass to steal a base.
Yep.
Right? If they're
Yep.
doing things that are negating that, and you're just like, I know you feel comfortable, right? And you know you feel smooth, but you don't look good. And then usually the
Yeah.
timing, right? You'll time them and be like,
Yeah.
look, it's not just me, but coach, dive into a little bit of just like give our listeners a visual cue of like how you would coach a steel break.
Yeah. Yeah, definitely. And you know what's cool is if I took 10, 22-year-old athletes, didn't know what sport they played, I'd teach them all the same initially. They would all be, because doesn't matter the sport. If I have to go from my left foot and move to my right side, don't care if you're soccer, tennis, baseball, softball, whatever, we have to apply certain laws of movement. Now, if you say, hey, listen, I'm a baseball player, I got to get a better jump. Okay, now all of a sudden there's certain things I can do differently that help you because you don't have to worry about getting the ball stolen from you or getting tackled. Or, you can go from that stance and go on a straight line right to second or third base or wherever, whatever base you're running to. So because of that, now I can take my stance and the first thing I want to do is how much can I absorb any loose ends right from my foot to my great toe to my ankle. And then we start looking at knee bend based on the person and then loading the hip. If I can get that left side loaded really well, and what I try to do is mirror it with the right side because the bottom line is the right side aids the left side. And what I mean by that is if I'm going to move to my right, which I am, I'm going to be taking a lead off first base, I'm going to be running the second. So my left leg is going to push me in that direction. Well, can I make that left leg as prepared as possible to start me? Think of a track athlete in the blocks. When they get in the blocks, they don't just haphazardly put their feet there and just kind of sink back into it. They actually load correctly. They take up a lot of slack. So when they push, the push results in energy going in the correct direction. Same thing with base stealing. And I actually broke down a video the other day of one of the faster guys in MLB. And just his position, because he's so fast, probably going to get the steal anyway because he's such a phenomenal athlete. But the problem is, thousands of high school kids are saying, "Oh yeah, look at that. That's how I want to do my steal stand." You just ruined a bunch of kids now who,
Yes, yes,
it's
yes.
kind of like copying LeBron James. Yeah, well, I'm not 6'8", 260. Yeah, so I can
No,
copy
not
him
too
all I
many
want.
people are.
That's right. So if we can load that left side and understand the right side when it releases and opens in the direction. So we look at the kneecaps as flashlights. If I can get that right kneecap to flash towards second base really fast, that opening of that leg actually gives me energy. You mentioned a phrase, action reaction. Well, that right rotation of that right leg actually helps me push and secure position of the back leg. Now, if I'm in a bad position of the back leg, that opening of the right leg creates kind of a wobble effect. And that's why I always talk about, and I'm so picky on positioning early because I want that opening of the leg to help me drive and translate my center of mass in that direction. And then, Drew, what we do is we teach them the hands. Very simple. You don't want super, super long levers at the very beginning because I need them to be quick to get me in the right position to be a track athlete and start accelerating. And then we just use our hands and proper mechanics.
Yeah. So guys, that's a really like big skill for anybody. And then infielders, that's a ball going to your right. You could
Yep.
use that going to your left. And then the principles are the same going forward, back, angularly forward, right?
Yep.
So I just think like for the listeners, think about like when in your setup, I think the setup is like, I think just if you could look at your feet in relation to your hips and shoulders, it's got to be outside them, right? Like it's got to be a nice wide low setup. And then from there, I think some big points that you mentioned were like in between the balls, the balls of your feet and your heels, like you talk about, right? Your archway, that's got to be heavy into the earth, right? Like that's got to have some like nice pressure into the earth because it's going to communicate well with it, meaning energy transfer.
It's a
And then I just
propulsion.
love
It's a propulsive position.
100%, like you
Yeah.
talk about, and then the front side, like almost like it's like a release of a rubber band, and
Yeah.
then the release of that rubber band is directional. So that's the user, right? Like the user's got to be good at that, and that's where we come
That's
in to
right.
help them a little bit. And then the arms are huge. They're just like that X factor, right? That like they're connected to our body, right? They have a lot of influence on our hips, extension, flexion. So I think those things there, just like you'll start to see athletes it might look slower, coach. Two things on that look slower. Like some coaches coach these athletes out of that, right? Like they'll
Yeah.
be like, oh, you're stepping backwards. And like hopefully they listen to this podcast and realize why they're doing that. Um, but then also acceleration takes a little longer to come to fruition, to
That's
organize,
right.
right?
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
what do you got
Well,
on that?
yeah. Yeah, no, that is so, so important. And like Ricky Henderson way back was great at this. And, he was so powerful in his low legs, he made everything look quick. But um, the area that I probably have the most difficult, especially with elite baseball players, high level baseball players, whatever level it is, getting them to understand, like they like to offset themselves and open the front side a little bit. And they say, well, it gets me open and starting running quicker. And I said, absolutely. That makes 100% sense. And it does. But that doesn't mean you're translating your center of mass towards second base faster and further. So an example of this would be if I could get my bat through the hitting zone quicker if I started it in the hitting zone. If I started it like right in front of me, I could almost like a bunt. I could get through there faster, but it doesn't mean I'm going to be more successful. So when we open that front side towards second base, or we back it up a little bit, which kind of turns their hip a little bit, you're starting halfway through the action, which means I don't have the same amount of force, nor do I start my acceleration properly. I might look quicker, I've turned quicker, but it's kind of like the Flintstones. You move your feet really, really fast, but it doesn't mean you covered any ground, right?
A
So
hundred percent.
it looks sometimes. Dan Path, one of the top sprint coaches and track coaches of all time, used to say track athletes when they come out of the blocks, if they rush their acceleration, they slow down at the end. He said you got to be patient and be willing to push yourself through space, which looks slower than it does if you step really fast. But you'll see the ones who push usually get out further. It's just that they don't step as many times.
That's beautiful imagery. Dan Path, Altice. I've been through their stuff, and I remember kind of that module how he spoke about the best, like how important it is to not rush it. And you think about it, it's like it's a time sensitive thing here. I got
Yeah,
to get there in a certain amount of time. The decreased time is better, and you're telling me to take longer on the start. And
yeah,
it's just kind of like, well, if you think about acceleration, the buildup of force production, gaining ground, momentum, well, it's just like a higher output to sustain that top end speed.
that's right.
And you got to go get there.
Yeah, well, I want to make another point for the listeners. We would never question this on a vertical jump. So if I started with a fraction of an inch ankle bend and knee bend and hip bend, and I tried to jump, a parent sitting over on the bench would say to their son or daughter, so, well, bend your knees, like push harder. But
Yes.
base stealing, they look at it as, well, you're taking too long. Oh, you got to get there quicker. No, it's the exact same thing. It just happens to be a lateral vertical movement, like a vertical jump, but I'm doing it laterally to move my center of mass to set up the right leg. So now that's the concept of pop. That's why I came up with that.
Yes.
It sets the right leg up. We push, we open, and then we push. And if we go too quick, we've denied the opportunity for momentum to start to build. We have to almost restart it with the right leg when the left leg should have initiated it.
Ah, that's gold. Absolute gold right there. And then the last thing, the way I would, and I've been hot on this recently, coach, and you just touched on it, like the Flintstones type action, like a
Yeah.
hamster on a wheel.
Yep.
Very, very quick limb actions, right? But if you're just watching the user from the side or the athlete, they're not going anywhere, right? Like they're
Yeah.
moving quick in their own static space, but they're not gaining ground. So if for infielders, think about like first step where the ball asks you to close the gap, right? You see ball down, the infielder needs to pursue it, hot pursuit. You'll see them get into that Fred Flintstone hamster wheel type action with their arms and their hips. And it's like, it's kind of awkward. You've been running for a while here to get to this ball. You're making this field seem really big.
Yeah.
So that's why we work on acceleration mechanics, just to understand, see ball down, get loud, right? Chase
Yeah.
your limbs, those are, I think that allows them to slow the game down a little bit and just cover
Yes.
more ground, coach. That's really good. Maybe what's like one or two drills for a youth infielder, baseball player, softball player, just to help with like power moving
Yeah.
side to side, maybe.
Yeah. Probably two of the ones that I enjoy the most that have different kinesthetic feel for the athlete. Number one, if I want the athlete to really feel loading of that backside leg, we'll add some kind of external resistance. Very simple, just a band, could be anything, tubing, whatever you want to use. And what it does is it forces them to find the position of angle of force application. If they're too tall, the band kind of makes them feel tippy. If they get too low, they feel too squatty, like it's going to be too hard. So they usually find a pretty good sweet spot. The other one is have them chase some obstacle if it's possible. Like sometimes it's harder on dirt, but you don't always have to do it on the dirt. You can get on turf or on something else. If you get out there about 13 to 15 feet and you drop a ball, and they have to take off and they have to get to that ball. What it does is it forces length versus quick steps because they push, and they're trying to get themselves to that ball and catch it. So it's kind of, you can use both of those depending on which the athletes you feel like they need. Those are two easy ones to do.
And then I didn't mention this for coach, but like a third one would just be like if you just lunge to the side, just learn how to get strong in the
Yeah,
frontal plane. That
yeah,
might just give you a little more force, but you need a good steering wheel. All right,
absolutely.
coach. I think that was amazing. Let's go. Let's go. Listen, we talked about this in season one, but I just think also for these parents, athletes, like what, I don't know, what does a good athlete mean? Like, what is it? And my question to you for the listeners would be like, coach has 7 patterns, right? That you could use as a warm up, you could use as a coaching philosophy, you could use as anything. Um, let's go over that, not as in depth because there's other things we want to move
Yeah,
into, but I just think it's so important for the parent, coach, athlete to figure out if I improve these 7 things, it's probably going to help me be a better athlete.
yeah, oh, for sure. And if they get the opportunity to go back and listen to the first podcast that we did together in season one, we broke down some aspects of it, of how, some of the mechanics of it and how the 7 patterns exist in space and how we move. But what a lot of them miss is how important it is to be able to identify, do we open to our right as well as we open to our left? Do we accelerate to our right or angularly towards our right, and our left? Can we combine these movement patterns? Can we do number one, which is acceleration, and can we combine that with a 180-degree turn into a back pedal, which happens frequently, especially for outfielders? And even your infielders who have to get short pop fly, they start running, then they turn, they backpedal, locate, make a play. So these 7 patterns, if we apply them effectively, they allow us to look at the mechanics of movement linearly from beginning, which is acceleration, to maximal velocity, which is sprinting. We get to look at the mechanics, the arm and limb actions, or body actions, and we get to identify where our leakage is, like where are they having an issue. And then we have 2 movement patterns that go laterally. Can we identify the gait cycles of a pure lateral shuffle where the legs never change from, the back leg is always the back leg, the front leg is always the front. Then we got a hybrid movement between this acceleration and lateral shuffle, which we call a lateral run, where my shoulders and my head and my chest still kind of faces the ball or the object, whatever I'm chasing, but my legs have to get me there. They got to get me there. So I kind of turn and I run, even though I'm not all the way, I'm pretty close. And then we start talking about, how do I retreat most efficiently and effectively? Is a back pedal the most efficient way? Absolutely not. Not all the time, but other times, yeah, it's really efficient because it gives me options and calmness. As where the hip turn gives me the ability to escape a current space and attack a new space where the ball is going to be. And am I better to my right at an angle or my left at an angle? Is my cervical spine aiding that or hurting it? Because if I lack range of motion in my neck, that's why some of our warm-ups has from head to toe rotational transverse plane type movements to be able to get that. That's why I love the 180 series so much, the turning. And then we got her jumping. And, a lot of people say, well, yeah, but it's baseball. It's kind of like soccer. They say, I don't jump. I said, watch a soccer player. Watch a corner kick and see how many times and how many people jump in the middle. I said, baseball has maybe not as much jumping as another sport, but it matters more when they don't do it well. Whether it's robbing a home run, getting a kind of a mid-level high hit line drive that could be caught by an infielder. It's just a different
Coach,
type of jump. Please go
on
ahead.
that point, I think the jumping is just the ability to teach before there's something in the air. It's
That's
the
right.
ability to dominate the earth, the ability to use underneath them to their leverage as an ally. So that's why I think jumping is just like any athlete. You need to communicate with the ground,
That's right.
unless you're a swimmer, but even the wall. So I think
They,
jumping is just, it
yep.
builds the motor, the engine,
Sure
right?
does. Sure does. It's so you look at those 7 patterns and you say, gosh, if that's the case, why not warm up with them and add value to them? You don't have to be boring and go, all right, just go 20 yards and accelerate and then shuffle back 20 yards. No, no, no. I don't do that. I add things to it. We do shuffle 180s all the time. So I'll shuffle twice, turn my hips. Well, what am I developing? The vestibular system. I'm developing the ability to rotate forward and rotate backwards. A lot of times when an athlete gets caught in a rundown, or what the kids call a pickle, right? That's what it is. It's being able to be sideways and kind of joust a little bit, and then all of a sudden you realize, okay, now I go. Well, I have to turn and go. Those are valuable skills that we learn through these repetitive patterns of the 7 movement patterns. Then we can add in the element of change of direction to that. You know what I mean? But if you get these 7 patterns down, now the specific patterns that you want for a baseball player, infield, outfield, edges, behind the plate, now that all matters more because I'm a better athlete.
I do, yeah, 100%. I always said, you give me a better athlete, my job as an infield coach is easier. And the fun
Yep.
part is I get to work with the athletes too and teach them like patterns, level change, like why that ball is not arriving where it is on time because you don't know how to time up your level change into your bat. It's fun. It's really fun to just bring the athlete to the forefront. And then I
Yeah,
think you get a better infielder, of course, or a better basketball
that's right.
players, anywhere. So that's amazing, guys. That was a breeze, but a very thorough breakdown as well of to what we need to be good at And then just watch the sport. You'll see what you need to be really good at and what patterns you do often that you need to be efficient at. Coach, we were finished our last podcast or conversation about how we really wanted to get into something like bigger than just development, right? Like, or actually it is development, but it's bigger than the game. So let's kind of navigate into more of the, Coach LEE TAFT coaches all athletes, all sports. But you go through your seasons where you're really hot on basketball or tennis, but you're still driving up to the Atlanta Braves to, help train
Yeah.
them on their first step. But right now, like, we'll say AAU, and for us, it's just travel ball, right? Like, it's the
Yep.
same
Yep.
thing. What do you got going on? You have an amazing message. I want people to hear about that.
Yeah, thank you. I appreciate the opportunity to talk about it because, I was fortunate enough to grow up at a time where we didn't have that. It was pretty much you grew up in your community playing. A bunch of us would jump in our cars and go to the other cities, outdoor parks and play against other players. And so that was our travel ball. It was we jumped in our cars and we went and played in parks all over the place and tried to find the best players, and we'd get our five versus your five.
I'm
Hey,
getting
we got next.
goosebumps, Coach. I'm getting
Yeah,
goosebumps. I love it.
yeah, that's what we did. So that was what I came from. And I watched what it did for us. I was an athlete that I played two sports in college. I probably could have played four. I had the ability, but it was because I did all these things growing up. I didn't isolate myself with specialized sport. And so when I talk about like certainly in the sport of basketball we call it AAU, but other sports have their name and it all falls under travel sports. My problem with it right now, aside from the amount of density, which is the like on a weekend we might have 6 to 8 competitions. Baseball might be a little bit different. Softball might be a little bit different. I know soccer's trying to control it a little bit more, but basketball, it's not uncommon for them to go and play, 8 games. Sometimes they'll play. They might get in the winners bracket and they'll run off 4 games on the last half of the last day. I mean, I've seen it back to back to back to back. Not only the coaches, they can't, even watch another play. The officials are done, the players are done. And so what's happening is we're creating this environment where it's only conducive to income coming in organizers. When we have that, this is what happens. This is the snowball effect starts rolling. And I keep saying to them, like, I've created my own model because nobody's listening. So what I'm trying to say to these travel models is cut everything down. Let's start doing 1 day events. Give families part of the weekend and give kids the chance to go to their best friend's birthday party or swimming party or hang out and go to the movies because they miss it because they have to be because their parents paid several thousand to be on a travel team and the parents are like, you're not missing this. So they do that for months and months and months. So the aside from just playing too much, higher risk of injuries, burnout, all of these things, it there's parts of it, Drew, that people don't understand is like, well, for this kid to go across states or 5, 6 hours away, well, the parents have to get a hotel, and a lot of times only one parent can go because they have another child home. So now the mom and dad are separated a lot, and that can lead to negative things within the family. We got people choosing to not be involved with a family event, weddings. I've heard it with weddings and burials. Family, family member dies, but one of the kids has an event. They go to the event, and you're seeing things of infidelity going on because they're in for 6 months. They're in a hotel and they see the same parents, and the parents sometimes go to the bar at night. They have nothing else to do at night. They go to the bar, they hang out, and it's just a bad environment. And I'm not saying everybody falls under that, but
Sure.
it's gotten to that point where we're not looking at the big picture. We're just seeing, oh yeah, my 10-year-old needs to get exposed to. I said, yeah, you're getting exposed, all right, but it's not the exposure you want. So that's
Coach, I just want to let all that sink in because I think I just want a moment of silence just to let all that kind of matriculate and just like You didn't even mention the like X's and O's of training at all in that. It was
Yeah.
just like the big picture of like the psyche of the athlete, right? The well-being, the family dynamics, the coach, the family dynamics,
Yeah.
the family dynamics within the team, family dynamics, kid the kid dynamics of their friend
That's
circle.
right.
That's a lot. There's a massive ecosystem that it
Yeah.
affects. And I see I've been asked countless times, "Hey, you want to go coach travel?" And I'm just like, absolutely not,
Yeah.
because it's just toxic. Like there's coaches that like, if I train with this club, they won't come to me because of that and this and that and I can't be a part of that. And then I hear coaches talk about how they have to deal with parents and situations of kids leaving this, like a transfer portal. They just jump from team to
Oh yeah.
team. Then I hear about parents tailgating and maybe indulging on things they
Yep.
shouldn't, and then who's driving the kid home, like,
That's right.
and you think like, whatever. I'm not. This isn't a moral podcast. Everyone's make your
Yeah.
own decisions, but like it's just they're put in these situations. It's their fault for being exhausted and not wanting to be at their kids all day long. Like they have to be there for 3 days in a row with no weekend after
Yeah.
working full-time job being a parent. I get it. They need an outlet. I don't know. There's got to be a better way. I'm not.
Yeah.
That's why you're here. That's why you're gonna
Yeah.
elaborate on this,
It's
coach. Like, what cut in half? What else do you got? Because I'm
yeah.
seeing the same thing. Kids are terrified to not play travel ball starting at 8 because they feel like they're delayed. And certain regions, like we're in San Diego, and I'm blessed to have grown up in New York where we have seasons, and I was
Yeah.
forced to play different sports or forced to get inside and get creative and do some different things, maybe
That's
develop
right.
more.
Yeah.
What do you got?
So I'll tell you, in the world of basketball, one thing, and this is where this we call it the basketball game model. It's we took AAU and we turned it on its ear, and we just said, 1 day events, 1 to 2 games maximum. We change the rules. We make it even where when you play 4 quarters, you can win a quarter. So I might be getting beat by 20, but if I win the third quarter, I get a win. And if I win the fourth quarter, I got 2 wins. Well, the team might have won the outcome, but we each got 2 wins, and then they, would win. So
That puts a meaning back to every quarter.
it does. We're thinking outside the box with making it fun. We emphasize small ball stuff. So we do 3-on-3, uncoached. Players, go get your own teams. And the only fees we ask for are to cover insurance and officials fees. That's all it is. Nobody pockets any money. And we just, and it's 1 day events. Go home after that. Go enjoy. And the parents loved it. And this is a cool thing this year, Drew, is with my basketball program. I took over last year, and I asked the parents and the kids. I said, "Trust me, please don't do AAU." I had one kid start on a AAU team, and he within like a month and a half quit. He saw what we were doing, and what I did was I found ways to get my kids to play but have fun. We first of all we talked them into, like, I had kids go play baseball. I said, please go play baseball. And I had a bunch of my basketball players run track, of which I helped coach. And so we did that. And then afterwards I would invite graduates and other kids come in, and they'd have open gym. I'd get the balls out, I'd get out of the way, and they'd play. But they played against really good competitions. And then we did scrimmages. We would invite other schools that were just hanging out in the summer and say, come on up, let's scrimmage. I mean, we'll do it ourselves. We don't need officials. We did a lot of that stuff. We got so much better. And a lot of the area teams that were all on their AAU teams, you could see the exhaustion. Kids were quitting. Actually, one kid quit. He's a top player, sick of it. He was just so tired. He didn't even play the main season. So we just created an environment where it was fun. If kids said to me, "Hey, my family, we're going to be doing stuff for a while. I have to work," I said, "Please go work, make a lot of money. Go do what you're going to do. I don't care. We're here if you want to come and play. If not," and then we tried to do, like, we would play ultimate frisbee basketball style, and we would do different stuff like that just to
That's
make it
cool.
fun. And we just kept improving because the kids saw it as an opportunity to improve. We did strength and conditioning. We did our sprint program, 6-week sprint program over and over. did our, plyos and all our other stuff that we needed to do, be better athletes. And it just helped us tremendously. And parents were thankful. Parents finally, because at first they were nervous. Like, yeah, but they got to get scouted. I said, who's scouting you? I said, really? Tell me. I said, I said, there was a player in our area that was dominant. He didn't get offered. And he was the best player in the area. He's playing at a prep school right now. And then maybe right now, these colleges are saying, why do I want the high school kid when I can go in the portal and get a 3-year starter? I don't have to teach him the college game, and we can go from there. And so I'm trying to tell the parents, listen, let high school sports be high school sports. It's not a
Yes.
recruiting ground. The kids who are talented, the top 30 kids in each sport, yeah, they're gonna get looked at. But the rest of us, you know what? Let's play. And if you want to go to those school colleges camps. Go to that camp in the summer, every summer. Go see the coaches, and you'll be surprised. But don't negate junior college, NAIA, Division II, Division III. Have fun. If you're good enough from there and you want to move up, go ahead. But we got to stop this. Hey, if I don't play for Duke, I'm no good. You kidding me? It's like,
I think that, oh God, there's a lot there to unpack. The first thing is like I had a tweet or something a couple weeks ago, like, let me know the last time a college high school coach went to the 8 to 12, 13U stats on travel ball and checked them out and saw, hey, how is his like WAR, his whip, his ERA, how many home runs? So I like it's got to be the game there. They gotta like this got to be their fun, creative, learn. Don't get me wrong, compete.
oh,
But
absolutely.
like all these like kids are like, I'm A team, they're B team. At like 9 years old, I'm like, no, you're 9, you're 9. You
Yeah,
play baseball, you play baseball. Like, yeah, like if some you could say maybe you're more skilled today, but I
yeah,
think that could be listen, if that's a byproduct of your hard work, awesome. If it's a byproduct of you're just stronger than people at that age, you might be in trouble, right? You might be in
that's right.
trouble because your development, like your psyche and relationship with working hard and developing isn't going to be as strong as a kid who's not as strong as you when he's younger. So, oh man, coach, there's a lot there, but I think it's just refreshing to like I feel relieved to hear like, oh my God, that there's a chance, right? Like
Yeah.
obviously that's basketball, and we'd have to figure out how does that work for baseball. I don't know. You got my wheels churning though. What do you
Well,
think?
yeah, and this is the other thing. This is one thing because I've spoke with many people in baseball on this, and a lot of them, they're afraid. I get it. I understand, because they're like, yeah, but if my kid does it, he kind of loses his bearings with his teammates that are all doing, and he kind of gets ostracized. I said, I get it. I'm just telling you, there is a better way. You're just caught in the hamster wheel. You're caught in it and you can't get out of it. But just know that it's not the organizers that have the control, because the parents give them the control. If the parents, in a specific community, if all the parents said, no, I'm done, I'm not spending that kind of money anymore, organizers have no choice but to do what they want to do. At the end of the day, and because they're seeing it now, because I changed with a little group of people in Indiana when we were there, we moved here, and you're starting to see it now. And so with baseball, one thing I recommended with them is I said, start doing, like, if you're hosting a practice or a workout or training, start doing do competitions, like make the kids win, teach them how to learn how to win. So you're going to do maybe fungos, or you're going to do something in infielding, and you each get 60 seconds on the clock. Maybe it's just pure fielding. Maybe it's fielding and making the throw. Maybe it's turning two. How many can you get? Now the next guy's up. And we're going to do that. We're going to compete. Can we do it with the outfielders? Can we have hitting? You can only hit to opposite field. How many can you get? And just keep doing it. Now you got to do it opposite field off sliders. And now you got to do it off, whatever, pitching machine. And there are so many games, have fun, play home run derby, play half field games, and you're only allowed to play infield games only, and the ball is not allowed to leave the infield. If it does, it's an out. So now you're going to learn how to control the bat. So all of a sudden, you've put the fun back in the game, but losers when you lost, you know what I mean? So we're not saying you're a bad player because you lost. You just happen to get beat on that game.
Or a
But
bad person.
no, absolutely not. Make it competitive. Do a bunch of stuff, and so there's a lot of things you can do. And so one thing we do, Drew, is we put after the main season's done, with obviously they have time. And then I just organized like a 4-week 3-on-3 league. We had teams from other communities come and join, and then we'll do 3-on-3 tournaments. It's just a 1-day tournament. Come in, you play 3 games, but the games are only 12 minutes long, and they're
Wow.
12-second shot clock. So the game is like lightning fast, but it's half court, super fast. It teaches them, it's like the
Yes.
FIBA rules. So how can we do that with baseball and softball? How can we make it really fun and do things like that where they're working on uh, hitting variations, working on bat control, working on fielding variations, and working on throwing and target control and footwork control. There's so many things that you can do and make it competitive, and now make it a tournament. And start by just having your team form teams, and then they'll start talking to their friends. Next thing you know, you got 4 hours on a weekend playing these fun tournament games, and kids are loving the game again. That to me is just what we did growing up.
I love that. And that's why I think it's like really resonating with me. Hearing that freshness, that organic competition, the creativity, less instruction confine, restrictedness, less social pressure from like parents and coaches.
Yeah,
Like like you could hear the dissatisfaction in all the parents and coaches when like a 9-year-old misses a fly ball. It's like,
I know.
guys, what are we doing here? They're 9 years old. Like, if they're within 5 feet, great job. Obviously, we want them
Yeah,
to catch the ball, but like, come on, you go do it. Like, if I
yeah,
was coaching a team, every parent would hit BP, try and throw a strike, try and field a ground ball, catch a fly ball. I want to see where perspective goes there now. Like, next time they want to yell at little Johnny for maybe striking out or walking a kid. You think they wanted to walk the kid or strike out? Like, they're
yeah,
trying. It's just hard. Um,
exactly.
that's amazing, coach. So I think we're gonna have follow-up ones. Like I'm probably gonna call you and figure out how we could do this for infield and try it out in San Diego or
Yeah,
baseball. I think it'd be a breath of fresh air. I think they're lucky to have you're a world-renowned coach in many different facets. So I think they're just super lucky to have you. I don't want to. That's not an excuse,
I
but I want to
appreciate it.
definitely create some stuff where it's like it's a template. That'd be amazing. Coach, any questions? Any like finishing touches? Anything you got going on? You want to tell our audience?
Well, just kind of expand just a real quick second here on what we just talked about. Look at the popularity of a sport called pickleball. Pickleball is the fastest growing sport in America right now, and it's the smaller version of tennis. And it was, played in phys ed a little bit, but it wasn't serious. But now it's become this sport where you're taking these high level tennis players that couldn't quite make the living at tennis, and traveling, because it's a grind of a sport, really tough. But now they're winning tournaments in pickleball. Okay, pickleball. Now, how can we take baseball and shorten the field? Not because we want to play the actual game on a shorter field, smaller field, but how can we improve the skills by shortening the fields and working on very specific skills with constraints? And that's what 3-on-3 basketball is. There's constraints built into it that make you play a certain way just because of what it is. Well, how can we do that? To add to it, and then how can we look at those small-sided games and say, okay, well, Drew, I'm noticing you're having a hard time moving laterally. So now we're going to start building in some athletic development into these small-sided games to improve athleticism. That's why when I play 3-on-3 with my team, and we do it during the season, actually, the actual high school season, we do 3-on-3 small-sided games because it makes them compete, but it tells me how they have to move their feet, because you have to cover, you're only 3 of you out there, so you got to cover the ground pretty quick. So it becomes an assessment tool. And I think that's the value of thinking outside the box and not being afraid of missing a weekend tournament once a month, and doing something fun to bring the love back.
I love that, coach. I think it's bigger than a game. Sports,
Yeah.
listen, sports are such a good vehicle for so many different reasons. Let's keep it that, right? Let's not only
Yep.
focus on outcomes, right? And and measure stats and statistics at such a young age.
Right.
Teach more of the in between the ears, like the approach, the love. How do you treat other teammates? How do you deal with adversity? Like, I think if you do a good job there, you got a chance for a kid to be excited to develop when it really matters.
Yep.
Coach Lee Taft, another amazing episode. It's always a pleasure to sit here and talk to you and hear you break everything down from such a simple, complex level. Truly, you are the best at what you do, and I'm so
I appreciate you.
appreciative and grateful to have you on our episode. Look forward to season 3. I appreciate you, Coach Lee
Likewise.
Taft. Everyone, go give him a follow on Instagram. Coach, any place you're super active on?
Yeah, all the, Twitter and Facebook, obviously for the older populations, and then
Yeah.
Instagram. Yeah, those are the ones that I pretty much hit. And yep, they can always find me, and I always try to respond to people. So please reach out.
And I'm enrolled in like all of his classes and have taken all his modules. Like I think parents could benefit, coaches can benefit. He breaks it down in a way that you can have an idea to help your son or daughter's journey. And I think that that's got to be at a pinnacle for parents, right? Like take a little more ownership of your kid's journey, get
Yeah,
out there, and it's gonna, I think, strengthen the relationship between you and your children. Gives you an idea to weed out who knows what they're talking about, who don't, right? Like you're
exactly.
putting your children in these situations. Make sure it's a good one as best you can. Coach Lee
Appreciate it.
Taft, you are the best. I look forward to having you back on next time. You take care, okay?
Likewise. Appreciate it, Coach. Thank you. Good luck now.